Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Much to Donald Trump's chagrin, I don't know that I've ever used the word chagrin before, but when it's related to Donald Trump, I'm happy to break it out. Much to Donald Trump's chagrin, this Jeffrey Epstein thing is just absolutely not going away, blowing up in his face. I got a lot of details that you should stick around for. First, let's talk about this bombshell resurfacing of a deposition, a short clip from a deposition of Jeffrey Epstein during one of his criminal cases, in which he pleads the fifth when asked about his relationship with Donald Trump and if he's ever been in the presence at one of his little parties when there was a minor there. Seems like a question that you could be able to easily answer without incriminating yourself, correct? Before we get to that, though, let me remind you about Donald Trump's long-held opinion about people who plead the fifth, who assert their Fifth Amendment right under the Constitution of the United States.
So there are 5 people taking the Fifth Amendment, like you see on the mob, right? You see the mob takes the Fifth. If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fourth Amendment? Now, we know Donald Trump has taken the Fifth Amendment, asserted his rights under the Constitution of not self-incriminating hundreds of times in deposition. So we know that he has not moored to some true ideology or principle surrounding whether or not someone asserts their Fifth Amendment right. But it is nice to hear the man who's embroiled in all of this controversy say, if you're innocent, why are you asserting the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution? Why? Well, his best friend, as described by Jeffrey Epstein, of nearly 15 years, maybe longer, was in a deposition. And that's exactly what happened. The good thing here, the interesting thing here, the notable thing here is that the question was directly related to Jeffrey Epstein's gallivanting, his partying, his criminal proclivities toward children, and if it took place when Donald Trump was in his presence. Watch this.
Efforts to shake the Epstein case have only increased scrutiny of their friendly relationship of more than a decade. Epstein was asked about it in a 2010 deposition in a civil suit.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
I realize after rewatching the clip that I said this was in a criminal deposition. This was actually a civil case, as noted there by ABC. So let's get a couple things straight here. Let's get a couple things on the table here. If the answer to the question was, yes, I've been in the presence of Donald Trump while socializing with a female under the age of 18, and if that female had been Ivanka Trump, he would have said, well, yeah, of course. Ivanka's been there before. Yeah, of course. But by asserting his Fifth Amendment right under the Constitution against self-incrimination, he's saying, I would tell you, I'd love to answer, but if I tell you, I will incriminate myself. Going back to Donald Trump's earlier statement that if you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth? That's where this hinges here. That's the point here, is that his answer, if given honestly, under oath during this deposition, it would incriminate him. Which leads us to what is taking place right now, with Donald Trump having been told back in May that his name was all over, his fingerprints were all over the Epstein file. And he dispatched 1,000 FBI agents, 1,000 bodies to investigate, to go through, to pour through the hundreds of thousands of documents to see where, how many times and in what context his own name would be found. This is an abject misuse of the federal government. The FBI are not his personal errand boys to extricate him from his own problems, from the problems he made by being best friends with a notorious sexual predator. That's not their job. But also, going to the hypocrisy of all of this, when we're a country of law and order, and there's so many other things out there that the FBI should be setting their attention to, Donald Trump sets aside 1,000 bodies and who knows how many tens of thousands of hours of labor, of attention that they could be putting elsewhere to solve crimes. He has them doing this.
We were contacted by a highly credible whistleblower describing Attorney General's pressure on FBI to quickly review and produce more Epstein documents as promised. For two weeks in late March, the FBI assigned approximately 1,000 personnel in its Information Management Division and hundreds of additional agents from the New York field office to work 24-hour shifts to review and produce more Epstein documents. These officials were told to, quote, flag any records in which President Trump was mentioned. Essentially, agents were pulled out of their field from their work combating narcotics and violent crime to review this mountain of documents. Other important FBI work was effectively shut down, according to the whistleblower. Using tens of thousands of personnel hours at the expense of public safety for no other reason than to try to bolster baseless claims you've made is unconscionably reckless. President Trump has not helped the situation. Despite his administration continually making promises about transparency on Epstein and the existence of records that they have not produced, he is currently telling the country that it is all a, quote, scam, unquote. Last week, President Trump posted on his personal social media site, and I quote, "My past supporters have bought into this BS, hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will," unquote, from President Trump. This is the way the president is talking about his own constituents, who are raising concerns about the very claims President Trump's campaign surrogates and administration officials have repeatedly raised. President Trump and Attorney General Bondi are directly responsible for the confusion and mistrust around Epstein's prosecution. Attorney General Bondi, in particular, owes both Congress and the American people the truth about Jeffrey Epstein, the whole truth and nothing less.
And this is why the fervor is at full pitch now. This is why all of these efforts are being done, is to try to get Donald Trump out of the trouble that he is in, related to something heinous and horrible that has whipped the MAGA base into a frenzy, some conspiracy-based, some based in reality. Like any good conspiracy, there's a hint of truth to it. And we're getting to the bottom of it now. This could be the thing that sinks Donald Trump. This could be the thing that has the base turn against him when they open their eyes and they realize, wait, our golden god, our demigod, our cult leader isn't the thing we thought he was. Pretty remarkable. Here's my prediction. There's going to be a push, a move to pardon GHISLAINE, or whatever her name is, Maxwell. I made a prediction back on July 15th, many days ago. Nearly 10 days ago, I made a prediction about what's going to be taking place, what I thought would happen relative to Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm going to play that a little later. But let me tell you, I was right. Toot my own horn here. Caitlin Collins tweeted this last night. The DOJ meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell is expected to happen tomorrow, I'm told. The DOJ, the Department of Justice, the same Department of Justice that has possession of the Epstein files that is riddled with mentions of Donald Trump, the same Justice Department that promised to release these files that has since refused to do so in order to protect the dear leader, They're going to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, ostensibly, I presume, to make her a deal. A little later, I got a clip of a congressman saying that very thing on the steps of the United States Capitol. That we could subpoena, we could compel her testimony, but hopefully we could make a deal to lessen her sentence if she agrees to testify. All of this is related to the thing that 10 days ago I predicted would happen, and here we are. Let's start with Donald Trump and what he thinks about Ghislaine Maxwell when he wished her well. He wished her the best. This woman who's been convicted of child trafficking, sexual, children trafficking. He wishes her well.
Mr. President, the other day a reporter asked you about Ghislaine Maxwell. You said, quote, "I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, but I wish her well, whatever it is." Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a person well?
First of all, I don't know that, but I do know that
she has. She's been arrested for that. You know that.
Her friend or boyfriend,
Epstein,
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail. Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck. Let them prove somebody was guilty. I mean, do you know that
so you're saying you hope she doesn't die in jail? Is that what you mean by wish her well?
Her boyfriend died in jail, and people are still trying to figure out, how did it happen? Was it suicide? Was he killed? And I do wish her well. I'm not looking for anything bad for her. I'm not looking bad for anybody. And they took that and
she's a alleged child sex trafficker.
Big deal. But all it is her boyfriend died. He died in jail. Was he killed? Was it suicide? I do. I wish her well.
We knew. That's an old clip. That was public. We knew that happened. But it's a nice reminder, right? Now, the thing that I want to talk about before I get to the prediction is what is whipping all of this into a frenzy. It seems like it hit a fever pitch right after the Wall Street Journal did its story about the birthday book, where Donald Trump said, "Here's to another year of wonderful secrets, Jeffrey, my good buddy," with his pubic hair signature on the naked lady picture or whatever. And then he said, "I don't draw." And then we found out, he absolutely draws. All kinds of his drawings have been auctioned off for charity. It gets worse and worse and worse, and he digs a deeper and deeper hole every single day. Here is a lawyer for hundreds of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein who says he knows where the birthday book is, and the people who possess it would absolutely surrender it if subpoenaed.
I want to go to that book because with your familiarity with evidence against Jeffrey Epstein, which you've collected a lot of through the discovery process, what do you know specifically about that book? Do you know that the estate, the relatives of Jeffrey Epstein, in effect through their lawyers, are in possession of that birthday book?
Yes, I know that the executors of the estate are in possession of that book. And I think that after they turn it over, it should probably be set in the Smithsonian as an artifact at this point in time. It's going to go down in history so that the world can see this book, and they'll know who were Jeffrey Epstein's best friends at the time, what letters did his family write to him, what other pictures are in there, things of that nature. Redact victim names, release the book, and move on. So that's it. Yes, the executors have it.
So you've just identified, not just for the news media, but obviously for House representatives who are now in a mood to subpoena, and also Todd Blanche and the Trump Justice Department, who suddenly are getting curious about investigating this. You've now told them exactly, according to your knowledge, where the birthday book is, who is in possession of that book. And all the House representatives would have to do tomorrow is write up a subpoena for that book, and you believe that it would be the lawyers involved would comply with that subpoena?
I know the executors' lawyers. I've worked with them for years. They're good people. They're good lawyers. They would comply with the subpoena immediately.
So look, I make the joke about tooting my own horn as kind of a credibility builder here, that you can rely on me for my analysis and my commentary. Some of it's a little tongue in cheek, but also look, I think that it doesn't take a giant, big brained individual to make these calls, to make these predictions. I'm not psychic. I've just been around long enough to see the writing on the wall. I've been around long enough and witnessed the behavior of Donald Trump and the rampant corruption of Donald Trump to know what was up next. So this is what I said, again, on July 15th about my prediction for Ghislaine or GHISLAINE. I didn't even know how to say her name at the time, Maxwell. Here's my prediction. If you're still here, here's my prediction. There's going to be a push, a move to pardon GHISLAINE or whatever her name is, Maxwell. There's going to be a concerted effort on the part of MAGA world that has been predicated by, it has been suggested by, it's promoted behind closed doors by the White House, by Donald Trump. Because if he can get the MAGA world to change their perspective on this, he can pardon her and shut her up. So then he doesn't get talked about anymore. He's not associated anymore. Wild prediction? I don't know. You tell me. So we might not be to pardon territory, but we're certainly on mitigating her 20-year sentence. We're certainly in an era where we're going to make things easier on her if she cooperates with the Republican Party and Donald Trump to say whatever it is that will extricate him from problems, from trouble. Will turn the MAGA gaze away from the reality and onto some fabricated story. Again, doesn't take a genius, obviously it doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take some psychic prognosticator to have figured it out. 10 days ago, that's what I said. Now, yesterday on the steps of the United States Capitol outside of the House of Representatives, Tim Burchett, that daggum cool guy from Tennessee, Tim Burchett was asked by a bunch of journalists about this, about the potential to subpoena the testimony of Ms. Maxwell. And he just put it all out there saying that maybe they'll do it in exchange for her testimony if they like what she has to say, and also floated the possibility of lessening her sentence, lowering the number of years that she's going to languish in prison justifiably for her crimes. Watch Hayseed Tim Burchett.
The government has said in its filings that they don't trust her. She's a liar.
No, she is a liar, and she's a dirtbag. And,
so then why subpoena her if you can't trust her?
Well, because the one thing we got holding over her head is if we find out she lies, she goes back to her original sentence. And that's looking at lifetime. And if she's looking at maybe parlaying this into reducing her sentence, then we could have some leverage there.
All of these are coded as veiled threats. If we don't like her answers, we'll send her right back to the jail. If we don't like her answers, meaning if she gives answers that are against the dear leader, then she will be punished. However, if she says the things we like, if she tries to get Donald Trump out of trouble, if she agrees with the Trump narrative, the Trump lies, then she will be rewarded beyond her wildest dreams relative to lowered sentence, relative to possible pardon from Donald Trump. This is all afoot now. Dangerous territory. Because Donald Trump, because we've elected the worst person among us, is now in control of the Department of Justice of these United States. He's in control of 1/3 of our government, being the president of the executive branch. It's a problem. Anyway, I welcome you to this conversation. If you want to congratulate me, play the crowd noise.
Were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness.
So yesterday during the White House press briefing, Karoline Leavitt dragged the now back in the good graces of Donald Trump, Tulsi Gabbard. Remember, she said Iran wasn't pursuing a nuclear program. He said, I don't care what she says, she's wrong, and yet she still has a job. She got something so wrong, so easy, so wrong, being the director of national intelligence, that it's grounds for dismissal, removal from the position. But she was right. So she gets to stick around. It was Donald Trump that was wrong, and nobody's firing Donald Trump. Well, she was dragged out, the person who got something so easy, so wrong, to tell us what her opinion is about this other thing, that they're trying to cast aspersions, criminal aspersions against Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and James Comey and James Clapper and John Brennan and Joe Biden and Susan Rice and a host of other Democrats, obviously, who set Donald Trump up long before he was even in politics, apparently. You really have to strain your brain to bend it and twist it to make it make sense. So a bunch of good questions, uncharacteristically good questions were asked of the press corps in the White House press briefing. And I want to get to some of these. These are going to be in order chronologically. This first one came around about the 14-minute mark or so. If you want to go to the White House YouTube channel and follow along, I'll play the clips for you, obviously. Tulsi Gabbard it really did start with them just trashing the integrity, the personal reputation of Hillary Clinton. And this I want to play first because it really does start off exactly what the motivation of this was. And it was just to malign, to defame Hillary Clinton. Here is Tulsi Gabbard saying, Hillary Clinton, we've got all these documents from the intelligence community that apparently is not a problem. You know, this is something that just struck me. It's funny that Donald Trump is complaining that the intelligence community had anything written down about his campaign at all, calling it spying on him. Yet that same intelligence community apparently wrote all kinds of notes about how Hillary Clinton was doped up all the time.
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump.
Heavy tranquilizers that was preceded by allegedly. They're really using careful language here. They're not trying to just speak off the cuff. You notice she's staring straight down at her notes and reading the precise language that's been written for her. They're asserting that Hillary Clinton's on a heavy dose of tranquilizers. Yeah, I got my lewds, bro, like it's the 70s or something. This is where it started. This is how it began. Some of the good questions, though. The expected questions. It's a bummer that we're in a situation, we're in a timeline in our history where these obvious questions to ask are a little surprising that they actually got asked. This first one, this is about the 24-minute mark. A journalist is asking, listen, so was Marco Rubio wrong before? I mean, we are setting up the battle royale, the Sunday at the monster truck rally between Tulsi Gabbard and Marco Rubio, or at least the earlier version of Marco Rubio. I talked about this, I believe, yesterday, maybe the day before, that Marco Rubio, when he was a bigwig on the Senate Intelligence Committee, said, yeah, Russia absolutely interfered. Absolutely, Russia interfered. That's what we found. And now they're saying something completely separate and apart from that. But now Marco Rubio is a part of the administration. So she's asked directly about this, and shocker, spoiler alert, her answer leaves much to be desired.
When you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
The Senate Intelligence Committee spent several years looking into this and unanimously agreed in a bipartisan fashion, Secretary of State Rubio was a member of that committee, that there was no political interference. There was a years-long Justice Department investigation into this as well that also concluded no political interference. So help us, from a 50,000-foot level, explain, what do you now have that refutes those two conclusions?
I will encourage you, in my role as the Director of National Intelligence, My job, again, as I said when I came into this role, was to make sure that we are telling the truth to the American people and that we are ensuring that the intelligence community is not being politicized. So I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you in the media to conduct honest journalism and the American people to see for yourself in the documents that we've released now, close to 200 pages, that point in multiple references, multiple examples, to include comments that have been made by senior intelligence professionals who are some still working within these agencies today that confirm the conclusions that we have drawn, that President Obama directed an intelligence community assessment to be created to further this contrived false narrative that ultimately led to a years-long coup to try to undermine President Trump's presidency.
Didn't answer the question. Instead said, my role here is to blah, 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 blah. Having just come off the heels of accusing Hillary Clinton of being on heavy doses of tranquilizers. Is that your job as the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard? Is that your job? Because you made it your job just a few minutes before. You just said, my job is this and this high, lofty position that I have that's filled, it's just imbued with integrity. Come on. The next good question, and really this is the question. This should have been the first question and only question that gets rammed down their throat at every moment of this presser was, why, if you had this file, you were in charge of the intelligence community, Donald Trump was in his first term, why was this file it's such a bombshell, why was it not released during Donald Trump's first term? Really, it's the most important question. And her answer, again, isn't an answer at all and only obfuscates and distracts from what the actual reality is.
I'm telling you to look at the evidence. Look at the evidence and you will know the truth.
John. Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Director Gabbard. You declassified these documents, if I'm not mistaken, Friday of last week, correct?
We released them on Friday of last week, the first tranche, yes.
This isn't the first time that President Trump has been president of the United States. He was president from 2017 to 2021. Couldn't the prior DNI under President Trump have declassified these documents? And why didn't that DNI do that at that time?
I can't speak to what happened there. There were several DNIs under the first Trump administration. President Trump faced many challenges from those who were working in the government who sought to undermine his presidency. That's been clearly detailed. What I can speak to is the fact that this was one of the first things that we started to investigate here within this Trump administration and have released the results upon the conclusion of our investigation.
Got it. So Donald Trump handpicked the best people who just so happen to also want to undermine his presidency. That's the answer. That's what you're going with. You're sticking with that, Tulsi. Oh, these people are very much too much. Anyway, that's all I have for this particular. They will stop at nothing to try to get Donald Trump out of the trouble he's in. And I hope at least, MAGA world is starting. There's certainly some faction in MAGA world that is starting to pay attention and realize none of this really lines up. None of this really makes sense. And it's through intrepid questions like this from reporters that we'll get to that truth. When they witness a question that makes sense that they'd love the answer to, and then the answer doesn't come. People will start waking up. What do you think, though? I encourage your participation in this conversation. You can call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. You can email me daily@dollemore.com. You can also just comment below. That'll help. That'll help the algorithm of YouTube, the mysterious algorithm, to share this content, to push this content into the little side browse bar of other people. And then my masterful thumbnails that are made by the talented and spectacularly loyal Chris producer, then it'll be on us to get them to watch. But you can help by commenting below, liking this video, sharing this video, making sure you're subscribed. And if you really like what we do, you can click the join button below and for $2 a month, become a channel member right here on YouTube or patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. For all of her faults and all of her many, many, many weaknesses, she doesn't speak like a demented old man. She has to just answer a different question. You should be well aware, well acquainted with the hypocrisy of the Republican Party up to this point. So when yesterday, Karoline Leavitt's White House press briefing, where she double-teamed the action with Tulsi Gabbard, it should come as no surprise that when she's asked directly about maybe one of the largest pieces of hypocrisy that we're going to be witnessing over the course of the next 3.5 years, of Donald Trump secured for himself through his MAGA Supreme Court immunity. Absolute immunity from criminal prosecution while president of the United States. He wanted this. He got it. But he wants it for himself. He doesn't want it for any other president, for any other person to hold the office. He doesn't want it for future presidents. He doesn't want it for past presidents. He wants it for himself. And along with that want, that desire, that need, MAGA world wants it too. Republicans want it too. Just like with anything else, where it relates to Senate parliamentarian rules, the arcane Senate procedures, the filibuster, the constitutional mandates on presidents getting to pick a Supreme Court appointment like Merrick Garland, and then the Senate shutting it down and not even holding a vote on it until Donald Trump was able to become president. All of these things they would lose their minds about if it was done to them, because they want power that they want for no one else. Okay, now that I've established that, here's Karoline Leavitt being asked the question that we all want to know the answer to, that they're calling for the arrest of Barack Obama. They want him imprisoned. They want to delegitimize our first black president's presidency. They started while he was being inaugurated in a secret meeting on Capitol Hill with a bunch of ghouls to delegitimize, to slow and stop any productive wins for him. It started early on, and Donald Trump was at the tip of the spear before he was even in politics actively as a politician, delegitimizing the very qualification of Barack Obama to be president because he was born in Kenya. He's a secret Muslim. All of the things that whipped the racists in the Republican Party into a frenzy. And here is Karoline Leavitt being asked, look, if you want him arrested, doesn't he have immunity just like Donald Trump? And she fumbles and stumbles and stammers and giving answers to questions that weren't asked. It's a remarkable bit of video here. Watch this, and then let's break it down on the other side.
A Florida federal judge has refused to allow the Epstein grand jury materials to be released. Does the president want the administration or Department of Justice to appeal that ruling?
That was just breaking as the director and I were coming out here, so I haven't had a chance to talk to the president about it. I understand there are 2 other requests from the Department of Justice that are ongoing, but I'll let this president speak to whether he wants to see an appeal. And the Department of Justice, I'm sure, can give you a statement on that as well.
And is he supportive of the effort to talk to GHISLAINE Maxwell? I know that Todd Blanchard mentioned that earlier this week.
The president spoke to this yesterday, and he said he thinks it's an appropriate idea. Kelly.
What is the accountability that you would like to see if this current president is the one who brought the case to the Supreme Court and Chief Justice Roberts made clear in his opinion that a sitting president's responsibilities in office cannot lead to prosecution, immunity? So what is it the President Trump wants regarding President Obama, given that fact? And the special counsel at the time, Durham, when that Supreme Court matter was not in effect, could have charged anyone and did not. So on those 2 points, how do you respond?
Look, the president has made it clear that he wanted these documents to be declassified. He wanted the American people to see the truth, and now he wants those who perpetuated these lies and this scandal to be held accountable. As for what accountability looks like, as the director said, it's in the Department of Justice's hands, and we trust them to move this ball forward.
Well, you would agree
Stephanie.
President Obama cannot be charged based on that immunity.
Again, I'll leave that to the Department of Justice.
It's a very Trumpian aspect of this administration that we see play out. Anytime they don't want to answer a question, they say, I refer you to the Department of Justice. I refer you to the FBI. I refer you to the office of the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, when they don't want to answer. Even yesterday in the Oval Office, Donald Trump was asked questions. He's like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know. Any other time, he knows everything about everything. Any other time, he has unlimited power as president of the United States, the dear leader of the Republican Party. He can do anything he wants and no one can tell him otherwise until it has to do with him being in trouble. And then it's like, what is this? Oh, you mean I doubled my net worth in just a year as president? How much? Tell me how much. How much crypto money do I have? When it's Kilmar Obrego Garcia and the Supreme Court ordering Donald Trump to bring him home, it's like, we don't have the power to do that. That's in the hands of the Salvadoran president. It just doesn't play. It doesn't work. And it especially doesn't work when you don't speak like an addled moron like Donald Trump. And Karoline Leavitt, for all of her faults and all of her many weaknesses, she doesn't speak like a demented old man. So it doesn't come across as obfuscation. She has to just answer a different question. Anyway, remarkable what we're living through right now. Remarkable what we're witnessing right now. Donald Trump, I mean, he right? Donald Trump absolutely, it appears, allegedly, acted criminally with a child, at the very least, possibly children. I don't know how much of that's going to get bleeped. Do your thing, Chris. Do your thing. But it seems pretty self-evident. Otherwise, why this effort to lie and cover up and not release? Listen, if you're innocent, just release the files. Release the entire thing. And as I've said before, if Bill Clinton's on the list, if Bill Gates is on the list, burn them to the fucking ground. Bury them under the prison for their crimes against children. You're not going to see me crying crocodile tears about it. If anybody harms it, you're done. You are done. Donald Trump, on down. Former president, on down. High influence peddling billionaire, fine. Cop, good. Politician, great. Get rid of them. No cover up. I want to see it all. If it's somebody I've liked previously, great. Get rid of them. Because loyalty stops at a certain point. Like of someone, fondness for someone, appreciation for someone, there's a limit. Once someone shows themselves to be a predator of children, no more. You're not going to get defended by some. By others in MAGA world, there is no line. There is no limit to the amount of loyalty and worshipfulness. Part of this is very dangerous because it continues the ongoing war against trans people, against trans kids. Sometimes good things happen to bad people. It appears as though the French president, Emmanuel Macron, is suing for defamation Candace Owens, who has been on a jag about Macron's wife being trans. She's not, but calling her a man for months and months and months. She put like a series of videos, like did a deep dive on her conspiracy podcast. It's nice to see when people who are Hitler apologists, people who hang around with people who love Hitler, like Kanye West, and they wear their White Lives Matter sweatshirts like it's a goof, like they're really trailblazers in the thought space. Candace Owens is one of the most transparent, grifty charlatans in the entire MAGA movement. She is a vile, as far as I'm concerned. Look, obviously not black, haven't lived a black experience, but I can empathize and put myself into the shoes of people. And if I had a traitor in the midst, I think I would feel the way that a lot of people feel in the black community about Candace Owens. She is just fucking vile. And now maybe there will be a little accountability. And the funny thing, when I read a little bit from this Washington Post article, is that she is making the claim that the foreign government is trying to take away her First Amendment rights, which is just a fundamental lack of understanding, just rank ignorance on the part of Candace Owens, because the First Amendment is that Congress shall make no law regarding abridging the freedom of speech. It's about Congress making a law, not about foreign governments. The foreign government has no obligation whatsoever to protect your First Amendment right under the United States' Constitution, Candy. Anyway, here's the headline from the Washington Post. French President Macron sues right-wing podcaster Candace Owens. Owens disregarded 3 retraction requests after making defamatory allegations, according to the lawsuit. French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife filed a defamation lawsuit Wednesday against Candace Owens over the far-right commentator's repeated allegations that First Lady Brigitte Macron was born a man. The lawsuit, filed in Delaware, alleges that Owens ignored the Macrons' attempts to set the record straight in favor of mocking them and retaliated when they requested a retraction. Part of this is funny. Part of this is just run-of-the-mill nonsense from Republicans who make wild allegations. They build wild conspiracy theories for clicks, for clout, for money, ultimately. Part of this is very dangerous because it continues the ongoing war against trans people, against trans kids, against the most vulnerable population in our country, and dare I say maybe the world, relative to oppression from government, relative to beatings and death, and the feelings of worthlessness or whatever that would cause someone to want to harm themselves. Suicide rates in the trans community are off the charts. Wouldn't we want to protect a vulnerable class of people in our country? Wouldn't we want to protect the kids who grow up feeling different and weird and worthless and all the emotions that are heightened, that are already there with cis straight kids? It's already a delicate, dangerous time with all of the hormones and everything else and the social pressures. And then you add social media and bullying and all of this other. I just can't imagine claiming to be the family values party, the Christian party, the party of forgiveness and the philosophies of Jesus Christ, and then only doing more damage to a community that needs the help. In an 8-part podcast she created and in social media posts, Owens promoted outlandish, defamatory, and far-fetched fictions to boost her platform and make money, the lawsuit alleges. Among the claims are that Brigitte, I'm not sure how to say her name, Macron, stole another person's identity, that she and the president were blood relatives engaged in incest, and that they were committing forgery, fraud, and abuses of power, the lawsuit said. Look, there's a lot to criticize Emmanuel Macron and his wife for. She was his elementary teacher or grade school or middle school teacher, or she early in his life when he was a child, she was his teacher. There's some weird shit going on there, but that's just constructs of what we believe is appropriate. To claim on a factual level definitively that Brigitte Macron is a man, was born a man, is defamatory. Defamatory and also dangerous for someone because of all the unhinged nuts out there who want to do harm to members of the LGBTQ community. But now that there's a little accountability coming her way, now she's crying foul. Owens spokesperson Mitchell Jackson said she, quote, is not shutting up, and called the lawsuit a foreign government attacking the First Amendment rights of an American independent journalist. She really thinks very fondly of herself. First, but secondly, going back to the thing I said earlier, the French government, the French president has no obligation to even respect our Constitution, to hold any fealty to upholding the principles of the First Amendment of the Constitution of our country. These conservatives, it is so weird and gross, and they believe that we are the center of the universe and every other country must abide by the way we see fit, must think that our Constitution rules the rest of the country, that our system of jurisprudence must rule the day. I hope she gets what is coming to her. Owens doubled down on the claims in a video Wednesday, saying that she had been, quote, sued by the First Lady man of France, and that the lawsuit was an obvious and desperate public relations strategy that she first learned of in the press. She also said the filing contained inaccuracies and that she and her representatives asked to interview Brigitte Macron before podcast episodes aired. The French embassy could not be reached for comment. Tom Clare, an attorney representing the Macrons, called the suit a clear-cut case of defamation. The Macrons said in a statement that they concluded that referring the matter to a court of law was the only remaining avenue for remedy after 3 retraction requests were disregarded. And then, of course, if you don't know or you don't remember, Candace Owens worked for the Daily Wire and Turning Point USA before starting her own podcast, and she has more than 4.4 million subscribers right here on YouTube. 4 times more subs than I have. Really makes you feel good. But, you know, I think it's a lot easier to build a following when you say insane, batshit crazy, unable to be substantiated things. When you're moored by principles and facts and you're restricted by the truth, it's a little harder to catch a little steam. And that's saying, you know, I've got over 1 million subs now, so not that I'm complaining, not complaining. I'm just crying and whining like a little whiner.
And of course, the Epstein case, the lowest of the bunch, minus 37 points, 37 points below water. My goodness gracious, on every single issue, Donald Trump is below water on all the major ones.
Look, polls are not the be-all, end-all of everything relative to where things stand or will stand when it comes to politics. Not at all. But they certainly give you a snapshot into how things are going. And right now for Donald Trump, things are not looking good. Even on his seminal issues that just a few months ago were looked upon favorably by the people polled. Like immigration, for instance. Even though the rest of us, rational, reality-based individuals, saw it as a Nazi power grab to create a white ethno-state in the United States, led by Stephen Miller and the mush-mouth dildo with ears, Tom Homan, and Donald Trump, we see what is on the table. But a lot of Americans were like, yeah, look, this makes a lot of sense. Let's kick all the brown people out. Let's raise the price of food. Let's have our restaurants shut down because they can't find anybody to work. Let's destroy the American economy. Great. Racism is just swell. Not the rest of us, but many. And Harry Enton, the stats nerd over at CNN, he talked in a segment yesterday about just how insanely underwater Donald Trump's polls are. It might be something that's difficult to get out of, to dig your way out of, because it is so bad on every front, not just on the Epstein thing, on immigration, economy, so many other elements that he is just shitting the bed. Watch Harry Enton talk about these numbers.
So the president says things are great. What do the voters say?
No. I think, is the answer. 6 months in, the rules of political gravity absolutely apply to Donald Trump, and the USS Donald Trump is taking on a lot of water. What are we talking about? Trump's net approval rating. Look, he started off back in January +6 points on the net approval rating, -3 in March, -7 in May, and now he's at a term too low at -11 points. His net approval rating has dropped nearly 20 points in the aggregate since the beginning of his presidency. The American people do not like what they're seeing, and Donald Trump's administration is in a ton of trouble at this point in the minds of the American voters.
Well, on what issues do the American voters seem to disapprove of him?
They disapprove of him on all of the issues. He's underwater on all the major issues of the day. Trump's net approval rating on all the major issues, -5 points on immigration, his best issue. He's underwater. How about the economy? That was what he was elected for. -14 points. How about foreign policy? -14 points. How about trade and those tariff wars? -15 points. And of course, the Epstein case, the lowest of the bunch, -37 points, 37 points below water. My goodness gracious. On every single issue, Donald Trump is below water on all the major ones. They're all dragging him down. No matter, it seems, what Donald Trump does, the American people do not like it. And that is why at this particular point, he's at a term too low.
It's interesting because this is the issue that may be on the top of many people's minds as members of Congress head home for this extended summer recess.
And it's his worst one.
I'm not sure that House members will be excited to see that number as they leave Washington today. So where does his overall approval rating stand compared to other presidents?
Okay, I do have one piece of good news for Donald Trump, and that there is one other presidency that has a lower net approval rating at this point than this one. The bad news is that it was Donald Trump's other presidency, his first presidency, net approval rating 6 months in. The worst was in 2017. Donald Trump was 16 points underwater. The second worst, however, is this Donald Trump presidency, 11 points underwater. The average president at this point since 1953 has a +27 net approval rating. John, do some quick math with me. It seems to me that Donald Trump is about 40 points lower than the average president at this particular point. He has the second worst net approval rating at this point. He is underwater on all the major issues of the day. The bottom line is 6 months into this administration, I think that most Americans would apply the word or words disaster, terrible, awful, horrible. I think that is the way that the American people would see it at this particular point. He is so far below underwater compared to the average president. The only one he beats out is him in term number one. And I don't think that's exactly the metric he wants to be applying to himself.
Interesting to see which direction it will go next. Harriet, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Glug, glug, glug. That's my Trump drowning. That's my impression of Donald Trump drowning. I couldn't do like bloated, swollen flesh floating like a body in a pond. You know, I couldn't do that. But glug, 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 everybody. Underwater. Those are crazy, crazy numbers. Immigration, -5. Economy, -14. Foreign policy, -14. Trade, -15. Epstein, -37 points. And that tells you everything you need to know. That tells you exactly why Mike Johnson shut down the House of Representatives. Our government is at a standstill right now because Donald Trump needs to get away from this being the narrative. He needs to get out of Epstein being the news of the day and the only thing anybody wants to talk about. And that's the only way he's going to get out of this. But it's not going away because he won't quit posting about it. He won't quit talking about it. He won't quit whining about it because he's not giving anyone any answers. Part of the good thing about this, well, it's both good and bad, is that MAGA world is also interested. That's the good news. The bad news is that it takes MAGA world to be interested in something for it to not go away. Because the press largely lets conservatives and Republicans and MAGA world at large decide what the news cycle is, decide what the controversy is, decide what's interesting or not to talk about. That's a problem. This story, Epstein, is important. It's important for a host of different reasons. One, because anybody who harms a child should be held accountable firmly, directly, strongly, aggressively, maybe permanently. First and foremost. Secondly, and I say that, by the way, meaning Donald Trump needs to be dealt with Anybody else who's on this list who committed crimes against children needs to be held accountable. All of them. Anybody. I'm not going to keep saying it over and over and over in every video, but I'm not looking to protect anyone. If you hurt a kid, done. The other element of this is the fact that people are waking up. The vast majority of Americans are displeased with the direction that the country is going, separate and apart from the Epstein matter. Foreign relations, trade, the economy, immigration, all of them people are unhappy with. Now, it might be because they see what a despot Donald Trump is, what a potential criminal against children he is, and it colors how they think about everything else. Or maybe it's just people are realizing they got duped if they voted for Donald Trump. I don't know. Anyway, I invite you, let's have a conversation about what the root causes of this are, other than Epstein. We all know that's the main one. You can comment below. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. Please, if you're still around, you appreciate me a little bit. If you're not already a channel member, please consider helping support this channel. $2 a month. You can click the join button below, become a channel member. You can also go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. I'm on social media just about everywhere, not on the Nazi Twitter, but everywhere else. Blue Sky and Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, Facebook @Dollemore. I'd love to see you there. Be genuine. Take care of one another.